Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. Really glad you could join me today out here in the vegetable garden. It's a beautiful day here in middle of August. You know, it's a nice low humidity day, those kind of days that are great for working out in the garden. Well, anyhow, today I wanted to show you my huge tomato harvest. So thanks for joining me today out here in the vegetable garden. So I'm located here in Pennsylvania, Zone 6, and our frost date's May 15th. So I generally wait a week, which is around May 21st. Is third week of May is when I end up planting my tomatoes, my peppers, my melons. I give it a week, you know, just to make sure we don't get any light frosts at that point. But anyhow, this year I planted 26 tomato plants. I planted the Mountain Fresh, the Mountain Spring, some Plum Crimson variety. Of course, one of my favorites is the Sun Gold cherry tomatoes. But anyhow, my Mountain Fresh, my Mountain Spring, and my Plum Crimson tomatoes, you know, I've been harvesting from them for a couple weeks. I've had my friends come over, some of my family come over, and my cousin come over, and you know, we've probably harvested a good 20 gallons or more of tomatoes so far. In fact, my wife and I, we've already made 36 jars of our homemade tomato sauce, which, you know, we just love making that. So I've harvested a lot of these tomatoes already from these plants, but you know, looking at them, you'd hardly even notice that they've been picked at for the last couple weeks or more. But anyhow, I just wanted to give you a close-up of how well these tomato plants are doing. And you know, the garden's right behind me here. So why don't you follow me along? So these are my tomato plants here. I planted 4 rows of 6 tomatoes plants, and then I have 2 other plants scattered throughout the garden. And I also planted these in my 6 mil polyethylene plastic. You know, the tomatoes and the peppers, and you know, I have basil here. They just love warm feet. You know, the black plastic suppresses the weeds, holds in the soil moisture. It also warms up the soil, you know, early in the season. And so my plants just thrive in this plastic. And I've only had to water this garden maybe a couple times here in Pennsylvania. Again, because this black plastic just really holds in, you know, the soil moisture. And anytime you plant tomato plants, you want to make sure they get a good 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. I always say the more the better. You know, any plant that bears like a fruit, you know, like your peppers, your tomatoes, your melons, your potatoes, your carrots, you know, cucumbers, they all like a good 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. But you know, you can get away with anywhere like around 4 hours with, you know, leafy greens like your kale and your Swiss chard and so on. But I also used my heavy-duty tomato cages to support my tomatoes. You know, I paid around $5 a piece for these tomato cages, but you know, they're really quick and easy. Once you put them in over your plant early in the season, you pretty much set them and forget them. And you know, this variety here, these are all Determinant type tomatoes. They're a bush type tomatoes. It means they get about 3 foot, you know, 42 inches high at the most, and they pretty much all come in at the same time. Now back further in my garden, I do have some indeterminate tomatoes. Those will continue to grow right up to your first frost, and so you want to make sure you have both type of tomatoes in your garden. And again, these bush type tomatoes or determinate tomatoes are nice for canning because they pretty much all ripen pretty much about the same time. You know, within maybe a month's time period, they'll all ripen together. But why don't we take a closer look at some of these beautiful tomatoes that we have here in our garden. Well, as you can see, those tomato plants were really producing some nice fruit there. But anyhow, you can see also that, you know, these plants die back. You know, the leaves start to die back, which is nice, but then it exposes all your tomatoes that you need to harvest. And you can also see that all the tomatoes that these plants produce. That's why I always encourage people to buy those heavy-duty tomato cages, because even with some of these heavy-duty tomato cages, they were starting to lean over some just by the weight of the tomato. But yeah, this system has really worked well for me. I also have an irrigation system under this plastic that I made out of a 1/2-inch PVC conduit. Anyhow, I have my wife's Longaberger basket that I'm going to use to harvest some of these tomatoes. You know, I have to laugh a little bit because I have a few viewers that tell me that, you know, their wife would be very mad at them if they used their Longaberger basket out in the garden. But honestly, these are very durable, and, you know, it's always, I don't like my house looking like a museum. You know, I like to use basically what we have around the house, and so it's a very handy basket to have. I can, you know, even hose the vegetables off, and, you know, the water will drain through them really nice. But anyhow, why don't we start harvesting some of these beautiful tomatoes? You know, I also have I mentioned earlier, the plum crimson tomatoes, and that's a meaty, fleshy variety that are great for doing sauce, for making spaghetti sauce or salsa. I use all my tomatoes in my sauce, but, you know, the plum crimson are great for making sauce, because the sauce doesn't become as runny as you're making it. But anyhow, why don't we start harvesting some of these beautiful and tasty tomato plants. Sounds like we have a couple cats going at it out there in the woods. But these are the mountain spring variety here, and they're just a really nice sized tomato. It's a beautiful tomato. But they're really great for using for sandwiches. So I thought I would get some more plum crimson tomatoes, because we need to make about 2 more batches of tomato sauce, and then we'll be finished harvesting from them this year. So these are the plum crimson variety right here. I also add a couple inches of my composted leaf mulch to my, this is my 18-foot by 30-foot raised garden bed. And so I add a couple inches of nice fresh composted leaf mulch that's amended with topsoil. I also add my alfalfa pellets early in the season. It's a nice slow release organic fertilizer that returns nutrients back to the soil. You know, because all your plants use up the nutrients that are in your soil, so you need to replenish that every year. You know, another nice thing I noticed having this black plastic, if you have a few tomatoes that fall off your tomato plants or that drape over, you know, the black plastic keeps your tomatoes nice and clean. Also, if you're working out in the garden and you need to kneel down, you know, this black plastic is nice to be able to kneel on. It's easy on your knees. So I just have a few more here that I'm going to harvest. And my wife and I just love canning our tomatoes. You know, we can about close to 75 quart jars every year. But we add to that our Malabar spinach, we add our green bell peppers to that, we add some jalapeno peppers, and of course our basil. So it's a really nice, nutrient-dense, homemade, organic tomato sauce that, you know, we just love it. We use that in our spaghetti, marinara spaghetti, or we use that in our rice and beans, or when I make chili. So we just love growing our tomatoes here in the garden. You know, again, it's also fun to be able to give this food away to friends and family, and, you know, those that are needy. And it's just something my wife and I really enjoy doing. And I ended up buying these tomato plants from Ray's nursery nearby in Telford, PA. Ended up buying, or costing me about 30 cents a plant. So, you know, it's amazing. 2 of these tomatoes, depending on where you're buying them from, can cost, you know, close to a couple dollars just for 2 of them, you know. So just think of the money you can save, and also the fact that, you know, you're growing organic vegetables in your backyard and they're nice and fresh, and the fact that you can freeze them or, you know, can them for over the winter so you can have fresh veggies all season long, you know, or organic vegetables. And so let me encourage you to think about growing different varieties of tomatoes in your garden. Something really easy to do. You just want to make sure, again, you get plenty of sunlight and some good rich fertilizer when you grow these beautiful tomatoes. Well, anyhow, if you have any questions or comments about this video, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And you can also visit us at plantsmartliving.com. And there you can learn more about gardening, and also how you can reclaim your health by adopting a whole food, plant-based, vegan lifestyle. Well, anyhow, I hope you have a wonderful day today. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.